Also, like, feel free to code along. If you need the files later, like, I can send it to you, but I think it'll help to follow along. But for today's exercise, it's pretty similar to assessment number 2, but it's called taking orders. And our goal is to create a program that is able to take orders from customers at a restaurant. And these are all the commands that your program should be able to process. So number 1 is to view order inventory. And you're basically like, if you imagine a real life restaurant, you're basically like the waiter or waitress, and you're taking the orders from the customers. And your order inventory are the list of orders that need to be served. And you need to be able to view the customer's pending orders. And these are the orders that have not been served yet. Ordering a new dish is when you add to your order inventory. Serving an order dish is when you take out the order from the order inventory since it has been served already. Adding a new customer to your customer list, and quitting to get out of the loop. So first, we can try planning out our process. So first, let's think of the classes that we might need in order to build this program. So anyone have an idea of what classes we might need?
Customer class.
Yes, customer. What else?
Because nobody really feels like talking.
Yeah.
Inventory class?
Yeah, what do you say?
Do we need an inventory class?
Inventory class. Inventory class, do you mean like the orders?
Well, so number 1 is view order inventory. Is that we put inventory that be a class?
Yeah.
Would it just be orders of
Yeah.
the inventory?
Yeah.
So do orders have more than one dish, or is each order one dish?
One dish. Each order will be one dish. So it's like a dish. One dish is one order, and it's like a menu from the restaurant.
So what does it mean to serve it?
So you have a list of your orders, and then when you serve it, it's like you take it out of your order inventory because it has been served, so it no longer has to be like stored in your list, if that makes sense.
So is it like a stack, or does the customer request the order?
So when you take orders from the customer, you're recording the order in your order inventory. So it could be a stack, but a queue would also work as well. Like, it's just a list. And then you would have to loop through the list to find the order that has been served, and then you would take it out. Yep. You would also need a restaurant class as a bigger container to hold your customer list and your order list as well. That is, I believe, all the classes that we need. And inside each of your class, it's important to plan out like what kind of variables you want to store. So can anyone think of the variables that we might need to store for order?
Probably like the name of the item they're ordering. Then probably also the price with it. And then how many of a certain item, I guess.
Oh, I guess each order is like one quantity, one serving. So I guess yeah, like if you order 2 of the menu item, then it would be 2 orders like after each other. And in my last like OOP mini review session on bike rentals, like I talked about having one unique variable to in each object to store or to serve as the variable that helps you to distinguish like one object from another object. So if you, for example, if you order like fish fillet, then another person could order the same item, but you need to be able to distinguish them. So you need like a unique ID. And in this case, it could be like the order number. And then for customers, what are some variables that we could store for customers?
You have their name, their phone number, payment information.
And yeah, like you could also have their table number as well, because no more than one person is going to sit at the same table. So yeah, and then does anyone have any idea of like how to kind of link the orders to the customers to like to store the orders that one customer have ordered? So like the customer's orders list.
Would you use like another order ID kind of like link, like link towards the customer?
So like,
So like a unique order ID. So like this customer ordered 3 different.
way like do this is you could basically store the table number under orders as well, because then you're able to keep track of which customer ordered the dish without having like a separate list under customers that has all their orders in it. And when you're determining like which, I guess, variable should go under what class, it's easy if you think about like, can one customer, like can the object customer like be linked to many different things versus can one order be linked to many different things? So for in this case, a customer can order many dishes, but one order has to be associated with only one customer. So that's why you would put like a unique ID under order that links it to what customer ordered it, if that makes sense. And if you have any questions during this review session, feel free to ask in the chat or and then the restaurant would essentially contain the list for the customers. So I believe that's all the classes that we need. And now we have to create our interface. So let's say We also need the classes. Usually you would have like a class folder and then inside have all of your classes in different files, but for simplicity's sake today, I'll just put them all in the same file so it's easier to see. And you also need your CSV files. Okay, so let's get started with our interface. Does anyone know what the first step is?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What would the first step be? So what would we need to do to keep the loop going? Like get the user's input for all the menus. Copy this over.
So I'm assuming this is where you're trying to create like interface, if I'm understanding correctly.
So you will need to do like a loop to get user input for every command that they want to process. The easiest way to do it would be do a while true loop and basically copy all of these down, but in the screen. Does anyone have any questions so far?
So this may seem dumb, but what exactly is the while true? And I mean, obviously I get like the while loop, but like, what is the logic of it?
So basically it runs until you break out of the loop. So do you know the break statement?
Like break or continue?
Yeah. So a break statement basically breaks out of any while loop. But in this case, since it's while true, it runs in any condition unless you like explicitly put a break in one of the if statements and it runs through that break. Does that make sense?
Yes. So basically after your line 10, you're going to have like essentially a break statement, and then just stop asking for the input essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we get to this is not required, but I like to have like a extra else after this. So if you input like a number that is outside of the range of the valid commands, then you would put a break here. So if you put 6, like if you don't put a break here, then there is no way to stop the loop, or make the loop stop running. But if you put the break here, then if you put a 6 in, then it will stop the loop from running. Okay. Now we're going to move on to our classes. So first we need our, okay, what do you think we need to import first? What do you guys think we need to import? Yeah, OS. Also CSV. We need to do that for the other 2 classes as well. Okay, so before we get started on making sure that all the commands can be processed, we need to initialize our order and customer classes. And then do you guys remember like the objects function that you used in school interface? Yes? No? So essentially what this function is supposed to do is function. So we put the class method on top, and it's supposed to link your CSV file with your classes file, so that you can, when you're trying to print out like the inventory list or something, you can read the information from your CSV file and directly print it out, like the updated version of it. So in this case, we'll have, and this is the same formatting from like the school interface exercise we did.
Do you have a preference between whenever you're doing your reader between Dick Reader and just regular reader? Or is there like a reason behind it?
In this case, like if you want your headers here, like we didn't input any values in here yet, but usually I personally prefer Dick Reader because it is essentially like easier to kind of get like the input that you want to get from the CSV file. So if you do like the regular reader, then you would have to use like number indexes to get the values. But if you do Dick Reader, then you can specify like the variable name So it's like less confusing for you to read your code as well. You just stop me if you have any. So this is the same for customers as well, except the file name is different. And you can change the names.
So the purpose of this method is essentially just grabbing all the information you need in the CSV and storing it in a variable for you to work with later.
Yeah, so the reason why we put objects here is we, inside our restaurant, when we're initializing our restaurant class, we need to store like a list of our objects, right? And if we use this function for both orders and customers, when we're printing out the information of our customer object or our order object, it's easier to kind of get the information from the CSV file without manually withdrawing the values from the CSV file. If that makes sense.
It does somewhat. I mean, I'm still trying to make it stick. So
But so an example of how you would use like the objects is inside restaurant when you're initializing it, you would do equals and so what this does is like you would, this is empty right now, but you would input values in here. So when you're initializing your restaurant, it automatically kind of reads your CSV file and puts it into your self customers or your self orders.
okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense than the way I tried to go about doing it with my assessment.
And then, so we have for our orders. Same for customers. Is this making for what we coded so far? If there's no questions, I'll move on to the next part. So after we are done doing this, we need to make our interface work. So number one, we have to be able to view the order inventory. And all these commands can go inside of your restaurant class.
And that's because the other classes, they can't do it on their own in a sense, like in the real world, like an order can't view itself, a restaurant could view the order, correct?
And
Okay.
also, like when you're running your interface, you would initialize your restaurant objects on top here. So if you want to run your functions, you would have to do like, if I do, let's say input first. Do this, then I would do like my restaurant dot something. So you would, it would be efficient to do all the put all the functions inside of your restaurant class. Yeah. And if you wanna do like, if you wanna run a specific function like order a new dish for one customer, you can do that by getting the user input for, oh, what table do you want the order to go to? And based on that, you can pass in like that table number or whatever variable into your function. So yeah, you could write all your functions in your restaurant class. Wait, actually, before we do this, let's fill in our CSV files, like random values. So for customers, we have menu name, price, order number, and payment. You guys want to recommend a few menu items?
What kind of restaurant is it?
Doesn't matter, your choice.
All right, hamburgers and fries. I guess that's pretty simple.
Like,
Can you say something? Oh, I don't know what's. Hello, is this better?
It's still about the same. It's
Yeah,
just
it's just super muffled.
Is it good now?
It's still about the same.
I don't know. What's wrong? My computer's kind of heating up too. Okay, I'll try to talk a little louder and more clear. But what other item is there for menus?
soda or like a drink. So how come you started with 2 versus 1? Is it because the first line is that taken away from the table number?
What do you mean 2 versus 1?
Where you start off with the table numbers?
When I start off with the table numbers?
Yeah, in your CSV.
Oh, 2?
Yes.
Oh, it's just random. You could put whatever. You could put 5 here. It's
Okay.
not sequential order. It's just random order. So like a customer from table 2 could have ordered before the customer from table 5 and so on. So you're just adding to the list. So
Okay. I was thinking of it as like a ID, like a unique ID almost.
Oh, nah. Then if it's ID, then you would need to kind of like keep track of all the orders in sequential order. So like take table 1's order first, take table 2's order next, and everything like that. But no, it doesn't need to be an ID. Plus, there can be like another order from the same table as well. So if I have like um table 2, this is still valid.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
And then we'll move on to orders. Wait, well, this is supposed to go under orders. Maybe. And then customer's name, phone number, and payment. Say, hey, he wants to volunteer me. I'll pick whoever, I guess. Um, one, which is enough for now. Okay, so let's get to our first command, which is to view the orders. Anyone have any idea how to do this? Or how to get started?
Would you somehow reference the order class and then I get no, I'm not sure. I'll lie.
Are you talking about running the taking dash orders.py thing? Like, is that what you're talking about? Where the input is?
Are you? What do you mean?
I thought you meant like getting started using the interface. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
For the interface, you can just fill in specifics after you initialize all the classes, or like write down all the functions, implement it first.
Right,
Would
yeah,
you call-
I just misunderstood.
Okay.
Would you call the class method from order since it should store all the orders in the array on 34?
And 34. Oh, when we run this, it's stored inside of this. So you could loop through your self.orders. That's one method to do it. So you could do one or And then in this case, like we use this in our previous exercises too, but we can do start equals 1 to skip the top line, which is the header. So like print menu name. Let's say order number and table number. Okay. Let's see if that works first. What am I missing?
Kate, have you called the method in taking orders?
Oh, you're right. Thanks for catching that. Okay. Except okay, so 1 works now. We have to move on to number 2, which is to view the customer's pending orders. So, like I said earlier, we could ask the user for which user you want to see the data for, and then pass it into the function. So it could be something like does this make sense, this process? Okay, if there's no questions, we'll try to implement this function as well. So this function is kind of similar to our objects function, in which we're trying to read from the orders file, but the main difference is that we're not reading all the orders. We're only storing the orders from that table number. So we could copy this, but instead of appending this entire thing every time you loop through the rows, you can create an object. You can store this inside of a variable. And then if I'll get that table number equals, then you would append. Does that make sense?
So basically, when you call the method, you're having them input the table number like you did on interface, and then you're checking it against the CSV value that's called table number. And if it's equal, then you push it up to what target equals, and then you just or is it pushing up towards orders? You're pushing the whole value towards orders, and then you're reading that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then instead of returning this time, you have to print the values out. So you would do like see if this works. Is there an order by table? No. Table 2. Okay. So we have hamburger and steak by table 2. So it works. Our next command is ordering a new dish. So this is just appending to your order inventory list. And I don't know if you guys remember from your school interface example, but you could create a dictionary and then fill in the values for the dictionary and then pass in that object, the dictionary object, into your function to append it to your list as a thing. So we could do user data, this, order, that's when place order number. And you would do and then we would pass in that value to a function. So let's create a function for command 3 called order. Let's try implementing this function next. So do any of you guys remember how to append to your lists it's pretty simple. It's 3 lines of code.
Do you do it almost like reader, but instead of R mode, you would do append for the mode? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so you would want to convert your order and then append to self.orders using like the 2 star. So you could do user data. You would have to create a save function so that you could update your CSV file. And then I usually just use the same save function from like the school interface example, and then just tweak a little things here and there to match my exercise or my projects. So the one from school interface. Questions so far? I think I missed. Oh, and then you would use the CSV writer to write your file, the updated version of your data. Let's see if this works. Okay. So we just added a new menu to our CSV file, which means it worked. Now we have to be able to serve an ordered dish. So technically removed from the CSV file. Anyone remember how to remove an item from a CSV file from the previous exercises?
Would you have to essentially read and store the CSV in like a variable and then remove what you want while it's read, and then you have to overwrite it essentially?
Yeah, technically you would also take in like a data from the user in order to remove a dish as well. So similar process as this one, except you're removing it. So you could do order number. In this case, you only need to take in one variable that is unique to the distinct dishes. Because you don't really necessarily have to create like a new object with all those information. You just need to be able to select what you want to remove and then select it from the list using the unique ID. So let's create a function called and we had order number. And then now we have to implement our serve dish function. So one way to do this is you would loop through your list of orders and then find the right one that you want to remove. So you orders and check if the dish is and if it equals the order number that you're looking for, then you would remove it using the remove. And then you would also need to call the save orders one on this one. Let's see if it works. So it erased the order from the order list, which means it worked. Any questions so far? If not, we'll move on to our next and our last function, which is adding a new customer to our customer list. And this is really similar to our process here, which is adding a new dish to our dish or order list, except it's a customer this time. So we're just copying that here and get the variables from customers. So name, phone number, and table number. And we will create a new function called add. And this function is also similar to our order dish function. So we can just use the same format, but instead of customer, new customer. And then we need a separate save function for customers. And then just change these. And we are all set. We have to change this to save customers. And we'll see if it works. Am I missing something? Oh. Okay, so we've added a new customer to our customer list. And that is the end of our program. Since this is just coding. Any questions so far? Do you guys understand all the process?
Somewhat, yeah, just seeing it explained over and over again, it's slowly getting it to stick.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you guys to try similar problems to just get the hang of it. But that's all for today's review session. If you have like lingering questions later, feel free to reach out, or if you have like specific questions on assessment number 1, which I knew like fewer people struggled with, I can also try helping out with that. But that's all for today's review session.
Thank you.
Thank you.